You create your own luck. So many people, when they first start off, they start off slow and they're wondering, well, what do I need to do to get better? The things that no one else is willing to do, the hard work, the things that is going to separate you from everybody else and create that lucky opportunity for you. Always valuing the relationships built over the money earned. The thing that excites me the most is not when I bring a new client on or when I make a certain amount more money, but it's actually when I bring somebody else on the team. And it's when I build a strong relationship with those clients. When I get to that point where I can call a client a friend, that's always the most fulfilling part of a job like this. It's valuing those relationships over the money that you earn, because money will always find its way back to you if you put in the hours. Money is a byproduct of hard work, not the goal of hard work. You're one of the most successful realtors in this area. You are the #1 selling agent in the neighborhood that everybody wants to live in this area. How important has your relationship with your husband been in building that?
Absolutely important, because when I told him that I said, I'm going to get my real estate license. And what that means to me is I'm not going to be a person that sells a house once every kind of 2 months. I'm going to be the best. My work ethic is I'm going to be working 24/7, whatever it is, and I am going to create a team. I am going to be #1, and he was.
Today, I have Liz Venema, the president, CEO, the leader of the Venema Homes team. Who are you? What is your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment is probably, I'm just going to start with my marriage. I met Steve when I was 17, and we've been married, all these years. I don't know if I want to say, but over 40 years. And we got married at 19 and created this beautiful life. I have a very blessed life. So I would say to be loved and to feel that love is what spurred me on to be who I am today.
What's the key to a lasting and successful marriage?
The key, I think, is not trying to control that person and realizing that they were born, you were born, and if we're only that we're aware of living this life one time, you each get to live together, but you get to be your best selves. Mm-hmm. And I tell everybody this. I went years ago to this church kind of, relationship thing. And I remember that they said that the altar is you and your husband and or your husband and wife. And that's you. And then, God is up here and blessing you. And then the people in the pew are your family, your people you work with, your friends, loved ones. But always remember the altar. You're the altar. So I would say that's when Steve goes to Oktoberfest with 100 guys in Munich, Germany, I say, remember the altar. Interesting. Caitlin and I have been together for 4.5 years. We run a business together. We live life together. It feels like we spend almost every second of every day together. What would be your advice to me in order to build a lasting relationship with my girlfriend and my future wife that I'm going to be with almost my entire life and every second of my life? What would be your advice to me? Let her be her and you be you. And so if you think of like the alphabet, if you don't want to be the letter A in your relationship, because an A, meets at the top, and it has, something that meets in the middle. But if either one of you walk away, the other one falls down. So if you support each other on being an H, there's you, there's Caitlin, you meet in the middle. And if the middle moves for whatever reason, you're both still standing. So I would say that, and I think it's really important to like each other. I mean, I love Steve, but I like him. He's a hoot. I mean, every morning we wake up, hello, beautiful. And every night, coming to bed, or you watching one of your FBI shows, or, we allow each other to be each other.
Mm-hmm. How important do you feel like it is How important do you feel like your successful marriage has been in building a successful business? Because you've built a really large size business. You're one of the most successful realtors in this area. You are the #1 selling agent in the neighborhood that everybody wants to live in this area. How important has your relationship with your husband been in building that?
Absolutely important, because he is a general contractor. So in that way, it helps because he readies our houses for sale. He, helps pitch in or whatever. But when I told him that I said, I'm going to get my real estate license. And what that means to me is I'm not going to be a person that sells a house once every kind of 2 months to give us some extra income. I'm going to be the best. And so what that looks like to me is my work ethic is I'm going to be working 24/7, whatever it is. And I am going to create a team. I am going to be number one, and I'm going to give it my best shot. Are you in with that? Because I won't be home on weekends. I won't be home evenings. It'll just on vacation. I'll be taking phone calls. I'll be on my computer. So are you in with that? And he was.
How long ago did you start that real estate journey?
Oh, well, I had kind of an interesting start. I've had 3 careers in my life, and at the time, I was a stay-at-home mom, and it was around 2009, and the whole real estate world, construction, everything. We went from, my husband's the general contractor, as I said, and went from this thriving business to, all of a sudden crickets. And so a friend of mine said, hey, our office on Main Street in Pleasanton, Keller Williams is hiring. Would you be interested in being kind of a first impression person? I said, what's that? And she said, kind of like a concierge. And so you have to answer the phone, print things out for these realtors and do that. And you can work from 9 to 2. And that was why that was attractive. But it was $18 an hour. It was nothing what I've compared to, because business has always been my background. So it was extremely humbling, and I would literally cry on the way home the first week of that, just kind of breaking down and having to come from a place of humility versus, but I was feeling humiliation. I called my older daughter and I said, I used to be somebody. She goes, you are somebody. You're my mom. Which was funny. But anyhow, as I got used to that job and I saw how hard everybody worked, it was a whole different world that I never knew that realtors did. And money was involved, relationship-based. And so I just it gave me 10 months to study. Do I really, would I want to go into this? So my husband and my dad actually had said, get your damn license. Get your license. Why? And everybody always says to you, what's your big why? And I thought, well, why not me? Why are they picking that person that doesn't talk at all? Or why are they picking that person that talks too much? And, how can I hone a skill and use my business sense and my leadership kind of qualities and my like of people and be really good at this? So I got my license, and my first month, I did a little over $10 million in sales.
You closed $10 million of sales in your first month in real estate.
Correct.
How is that possible?
It's back to real estate is about relationships. So when I was being a stay-at-home mom, raising my children, I worked in all the classrooms. So I would go in once a week, got to know all the teachers, and this is through elementary school. They wouldn't let me help once middle school got in, but I was a helicopter mom that kind of landed. But anyway, and met many, many moms, met many, many dads, and I had somebody call me and say, a friend that believed in me, and he said, I really want to hire you, but you don't know anything yet. So I asked a person that was in the office that I respected, and I asked her if she'd partner with me. And so that's what happened. And his house was in Ruby Hill. It was, in those days, a $2.8 million house. It was 7,000 square feet. And Super Bowl Sunday was our first open house weekend, and nobody wanted to work. So I did. I was thrilled. I got to drive up, and my dad had given me a Mercedes. I had a Mazda car, and before I got my license, and when I got my license, he says, you can't have that car. You have to, have this car. So I had the most beautiful car. I had my signs, and I was putting them out, and I was full of pride. So I go there, nobody comes. Super Bowl Sunday, I'm sitting there with chicken wings and the game on the beautiful big screen, and crickets, and nobody's there. And all of a sudden, this lady comes in, and she said, I'm not here to buy. I am here to just look because my husband's watching the game. So I said, well, I'm not allowed to let you walk around by yourself, so we can talk about anything except for, she didn't want to buy the house. She just wanted to have entertainment. So we walked around from room to room, and it turned out we had a lot in common with the different teachers our kids had, and she was younger than me. But she said, I have to be honest with you, I love this house. I absolutely love it. And I really love that you didn't try to sell it to me. So I'm going to go, when the game's over, come back. Will you stay here? So I waited, and she came back. It turns out they wanted to downsize. So they had a bigger house to sell. So I represented the seller on the house that they were buying. I represented the buyer on the house that they bought, and then they listed their more expensive house with me. And they liked me so much they had their mother to move in with them, and they asked me to sell her house across town. So that's what happened.
It's so interesting because I think about the concept of you create your own luck a lot. Nobody wanted to work on a Super Bowl Sunday. You were willing to work on a Super Bowl Sunday. Nobody showed up. You could have quit after an hour and been like, no one's shown up. I'm just going to go. I'm going to go hang out with the family, go watch the game. But instead, you stayed there. You did something that no one else was willing to do, and you created your own luck. So many people, when they first start off, they start off slow, and they're wondering, well, what do I need to do to get better? The things that no one else is willing to do. The hard work, the things that is going to separate you from everybody else and create that lucky opportunity for you. Because that's a lucky opportunity. You had someone that came in, bought the house, allowed you to sell their house and represent them as a buyer. That's amazing for your first transaction and your first client.
Yeah.
What do you feel like about that statement of you create your own luck? How does that resonate with you?
I do. Well, I'm a person that believes luck is in my DNA. So I already have a confidence and a belief in that we can create any life that we want to have. With our marriage, we can create any marriage we want to have. Do you want to have a loving, happy, fun marriage? Then you focus on what you like about that person. Do you want to have a successful career? Then you focus on what you like about that. Whenever anybody works for me, I say to them, do 75% of what you like, because then you will be successful. And also, I'm not really answering your question, but I'm going to say this. You can never focus on the money. I like money and money likes me. It's just a God-given thing, and I believe in it. I didn't think, people told me, you'll be lucky if you sell a mobile home or a condo. And I had no judgment about people that live that way. But I thought to myself, okay, I don't think that's going to be me, but okay. And it wasn't me.
So you had haters. You had people that were judging you for
I
making
still
that career
have.
leap.
I still do. Yeah, because the more successful you get, I have people walk in and say, oh, wouldn't it just be wonderful to be Liz Venema? And I say, it is pretty damn wonderful. Yeah, I like it. But yeah, people are going to say whatever they want to say.
Wow. How do you deal with that outside noise?
Well, I could never be good at like a movie star like the Justin Biebers of the world, because I do get more affected, I think, when I have that happen. But I also think it's a way to grow, because there's a fine line between explaining yourself or, thinking, well, could I have done something different, versus no, stop. So you need to know what your healthy boundary is about. Maybe you don't read the newspaper or, take a phone call or read a text, and, you need to be in a good place for it. But
interesting. Yeah. So you've been in real estate for a while. You've reached a level of success where you still have haters. You have people saying, oh, must be nice to be Liz Venema. How successful have you been monetarily? How much real estate have you sold over your career?
Oh, wow. So I had a business partner, the person I had when I first got into business, and we were super successful together. Almost 8 years, so 7.5 years. And when we separated that year, we did 110 million in sales. So my very first, when we first started working together, she said, what do you hope to make your first year? And I said, and I thought more of, what do I want to make money-wise? Well, I just come from what I didn't share with you. The reason I got the job for the $18 an hour is because we didn't have any money. Our house was getting foreclosed on. There was a lot going on. And so to move from that aspect, I found this book called Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. And it just kind of came to me. I think I was looking for a diet book or something in the old days when you actually go in and get a book. And I saw this book that said, Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. And I thought, what is that? So I started flipping through it, and it was all about, instead of looking at what you don't have, so in my case, we didn't have money, start looking at the money that you get and say thank you. And so it turned my whole life around, because if I found a penny, I didn't immediately say, I wish I found $100, whatever. I started saying thank you. When my car broke down and I had saved up $800 and it was $700 and I had to give it all away to the car guy, thank you that I had the money. Paying the taxes, thank you that I have the money to pay the taxes. So I really had to shift my mindset from worry and where's the next, thing going to come from into being grateful for every single thing that came into my life. Grateful for my marriage, taking time to say to Steve what I loved about him. My girls, I have a wonderful relationship with my children. We're in a family that works together. So we have that extra blend. I've traveled the world. I've been in first class. I've been in coach. I've been, all over, and it's all about who you meet wherever you go, and being grateful. I have a my life is really a living vision board.
Interesting. You've accomplished a heck of a lot, obviously, and I think it's super amazing that you've built a family business as well. Because I know that's super difficult. Yeah, I was gonna loop back to
that. We either have surpassed or just close to a billion in sales.
$1 billion in sales. Wow.
Dollars volume.
How many realtors in this area have closed that volume of real estate?
I don't know, maybe 2.
Wow. And there's a lot of realtors in the area.
There's a lot of great realtors in the area. That's one thing also, when you talk about relationships, I have great relationships with a lot of realtors. There's a lot of money involved, and not just for yourself, but my average price point is $3 million houses. So wow. I'm mostly on a referral based, but my team, we have traditional sales, which is, I had a client call me and he said, hey, you sold my $2.5 million house, but can you recommend someone on your team? It's I found this condo I want to buy for my daughter, and it's $650,000. And I said, I'll do it. And then he said, oh, you do it? And I said, absolutely. It's not about the money. It's about the people. So we have a traditional division on our team that's their wheelhouse and that's their comfort zone. And then we have a luxury division on our team.
Wow. So you've sold over $1 billion,
it's almost right around
$1 billion of real estate.
It, but yes.
What is the most amount of money that you've personally made in a single year?
Oh, me personally, probably just a little over $2 million.
Okay. As someone that's made close to $2 million, what is a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's on the come up and wants to get to that income level? What piece of advice would you give to them in order to make what puts you in the top 1% of earners?
This is what I would tell my team: do not focus on the money. Focus on what you're willing to do, what you love. Dress up, show up. Getting people back in after COVID was so difficult, and I know that people love working remotely and this and that. It's just not my gig. Have a beautiful office. Come to the office. Dress up, show up. Make your calls. Send your emails. Send your text messages. Greet people. Do whatever you need to do to create your business. Some people are really good at social media. Some people aren't. Some people are really good at cold calling. Some people never pick up a phone. Find what you like to do and do it, and that's what's going to make you the money. And also, you're going to have to work. I don't believe in that, things fall into your lap. If it falls into your lap, yay, but make sure that, you kind of cultivate it, right? So I've been asked for different things over the years, and I've given listings to people on my team or whatever. If they're going on vacation or they're, not in a place where they're willing to work it the way I work it, then they don't get it. So I think it all comes down to don't focus on the money and your work ethic.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, how did your marriage get this way, or how do you stay this way, or whatever? And other than loving and liking, you have to have the same moral compass. The foundation of anything, your business, your marriage, your friendships, has to be that you are morally similar.
Yeah, I love that point. I've thought to myself a lot as I'm building this business, always valuing the relationships built over the money earned. And it's interesting because as I build the business, the thing that excites me the most is not when I bring a new client on or when I make a certain amount more money and I charge somebody more because we've earned that. But it's actually when I bring somebody else on the team. And it's when I build a strong relationship with those clients. It's not because in the beginning, when you work with a client, you're still getting to know each other, right? But when I get to that point where I can call a client a friend, when I can talk to them about almost anything and I have that relationship and a solid relationship where it feels like it's more than business, that's always the most fulfilling part of a job like this. It's valuing those relationships over the money that you earn because money flows. The thing that I've realized that, and I haven't made nearly as much money, obviously I'm still in the early part of my journey, money will always find its way back to you if you put in the hours. Money is a byproduct of hard work, not the goal of hard work. So anytime that I've been afraid that, we have to spend this amount of money, it's like 6 months later, I don't even remember that anymore because we're already in a different place. We've done the work to be able to get here. So I love that point of don't focus on the money. I prefer to focus on the people. And that's how I think it's going to make me financially successful, at least.
I would agree.
Yeah. Now, want to dig into a little bit more about your career. What do you think is the number one challenge that you've ever faced, and how did you overcome that adversity?
Great question. My mind went to two different two different ways. One was working with other people, on your team, and then the other was not trying to do everything, be the best at what you do. So for an example, before I go into any listing, represent any buyer, I always say a very short prayer of to everybody's highest good. And what that does for me is it takes the pressure off of me having to control the outcome versus me just being my best self. And when I'm my best self in any given situation, then it allows other people kind of, energy, like money, feeds off each other, right? But the worst thing that's ever happened to me, is more like the human spirit, I would say. I had one client who he was a CEO, very, very powerful individual, a consultant for Google and Steve Jobs, and just different,
Wow.
very, very powerful, very private person. And so we sold him a beautiful 10,000 square foot home, and he called and wanted to take us out to dinner. Like a year later, 8 months later. So we went, and when I met him in the restaurant, he said, my taste buds are off today or whatever. Well, my brother had just died of cancer, colon cancer, and I thought right away, oh, he's had chemotherapy. So I watched him throughout the dinner, and he never shared anything then. But then he texted afterwards and said, I actually had everybody together because I'm going to die. And he had, out of the blue, just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it was at the very late stages. So that is the hardest thing for me, is when someone you care about, dies.
Wow.
And so then he wanted us to make sure that we protected his wife, and sold his house. And, there was a whole dance in that because he was a very powerful individual. He lit up a room. I mean, I just was thinking, listening to him, interesting that this happens to someone, and it happens, and he has no control over what's happening. So he only, so that part was very hard. Have I ever had, I've had a person, one or two,
Can I ask you something before we move on
yeah.
from that one? Someone that's achieved massive career success, has a family, what do you think is the legacy that he left behind?
Well, his legacy is, I just think a brilliant mind. I don't know. I'm not in his marriage, or, I don't think he had any children. But I think his legacy is he lit up a room. That was an elevated being on this earth. I mean, I always felt that way when I was in his presence.
Getting to
So
know him, what do you think is the most important? What do you think was the most important thing to
he
him
gave me
personally?
a book signed by the author that he had given to everyone when he was doing his consulting for Google. And I can't remember the exact title, but it's called something like The Happiness Factor or something like that. And it's signed by the author, and he gave it to me. And it was, I think that's how to have a full, wonderful. I mean, he had things that he did. I mean, he's this much for way higher than me as far as finances and everything. And he invited our team to come to Europe, and he was going to set up like a mystery kind of a game. I guess like Survivor. I don't know what it was, but we never ended up doing it. But so he had a lot of, I think he brought fun. I mean, it's this book on happiness, and he thought of me and he said, I want you to have this. So it's kind of like how to have the happiness factor in life. So I would say for me, that was his legacy,
Wow.
his power, and how to still have fun and be happy in that power.
I think that is a really good bridge into the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because you just mentioned someone who had made it as far as finances is concerned. He was able to afford a $10,000 square foot house. He invited your team, who he knew you well, but not, I mean, normally people don't just fly people out to Europe to do these things. And someone that passed away of cancer, he had achieved any level of normal conventional success, but he had his life taken away from him early. The reason I kind of tie that all together is I want to know, based on the people that you've met and even this person's story, what is your definition of success in life?
Oh, wow. I don't know why this is. I want to have $10 million saved liquid asset wise. I'm sorry. I'm going to be embarrassed I said this out loud. And the reason why is then I feel like money gives you the freedom to make your choices of what you want to do. And whatever money touches me, I'm also a very giving person. So it's going to, touch other people too. I don't think I'm answering your question. So success to me is happiness. Waking up every day and just being like, who am I going to help today, and how am I going to be of service, and how am I going to have fun doing it?
Well, I think you just highlighted really the two kind of pools of success for yourself. One is the conventional means of financial success, and then the other one is fulfillment in your life. Talking about the financial success portion, $10 million in liquid assets. When you say that money comes to you, you know that it touches others and you're able to give back to others. Someone that's achieved some level of financial success like yourself, what are some of your favorite ways to give back when you have achieved that financial success?
So my daughter, Alexis, she's my youngest. She's 27. When she was a junior in high school, when you were applying for the colleges, she was making cookies at Christmas with her boyfriend, and she said, "Hey, Mom, my mouth is bleeding." And I said, "Well, you probably bit your tongue or whatever." And then she comes back down. She goes, "And I've got these weird dots on my." So I started looking at her skin and her legs and her hands, and she literally had thousands and thousands of pinpricks everywhere. And I said, "Oh my God!" And so I call her. I still didn't think anything of it. I call her doctor. It was 9:00 at night. A week before Christmas, and he said, "You need to take her to an emergency right away." I said, "Why?" And he said, "Just do it." So whatever. So the car could take her down there, and the nurse made an error, I would believe. She was looking at her chart up on the wall, and after we'd been there a half hour, and the blood work and everything, and she said, "Oh my God." And I said, "Oh my God, what?" And she said, "Nothing. I'll wait for the doctor to tell you." I said, "No, you don't get to say 'oh my God' and not say what you're saying 'oh my God' about." So she said, "Well, the average person has, 400 blood count or something, red blood cell count, and your daughter has 2, so she could bleed out any minute." I'm like, "Oh my God." So anyway, it went from Christmas cookies to that. Then we got taken an emergency over to UCSF in San Francisco in the oncology, cancer, pediatric division, and it was just a nightmare. And they gave her, they believed she had leukemia, and that they gave her something to build up her blood count, and it made her very violently ill. So for 4 days, it was one day before, not Christmas Eve, but the day before Christmas Eve, they finally were able to do a bone marrow biopsy, and it turned out it wasn't cancer. So this was 4 days of, her not communicating. I slept on a, bed next to her, and my husband and friends came, everything, and she literally couldn't talk or anything for 4 days, and they couldn't. She was so sick from the medication. So anyway, moral to the whole story is, we don't know why. The doctors don't know why, but it turned out not to be leukemia. And he said to her, "I would bet my house that you have leukemia." That's what he said to her. Then when all the test results came back, it was 8:00 at night, and the whole doctors came in and said, "We've just had a shock. It's not leukemia. She has severe mono, and the mono is attacking her spleen, and her spleen is attacking all her blood cells." So it has a name for it. I can't remember what it was, but all I heard is that she didn't have cancer.
Wow.
So she was very ill for at least 6 months. But so during that time of going back and forth into the oncology departments and everything, it turned out to not be cancer, but we met a lot of parents that, the kids died. And so Steve and I became very involved in now you just hear the kids say, kind of like this grown adult client, and they would just say, I just want to go to Disneyland, or I just want to go to whatever. So Steve had his birthday at his 60th birthday at Disney World, and he invited everybody, all our friends and everything, and he closed down, what do you call it? One of those water parks, and Typhoon Lagoon. And so he had his party there, but he said, "I'd like you to supply Make-A-Wish and not anything for me." So that was the beginning of that. And we met people from Make-A-Wish, met their son that had brain cancer, and he's still alive today, which is great. So through that, we met this other foundation that it rings even truer or deeper. I mean, there's room for everybody, right? But it really hits me is that Steve's an Iron Man. So his group of Iron Men are very involved in something called Rooms for Hope. And basically, I went to an event at Black Hawk Museum, and they go in, and when the child has cancer, they decorate that child's room any way they want to have it be, because their goal is to get them out of the hospital, and but they're still stuck in their room. So if they like to be an astronaut or a basketball player or a dancer or whatever it is, they decorate the room with however they want. And what I also love about them is they do the siblings' rooms too.
Oh, wow.
And so Steve and I started donating large amount of sums of money to that.
Wow.
And eventually, Steve's a general contractor. I sell houses. So, I might somehow in the future try to tie more into that. But, and then they show you all the pictures of the children in the rooms. And, lots of people are involved in that here. And one of the recipients lives here in Pleasanton.
How did that experience with your daughter, and how that exposed you to this whole other world of parents that have kids with cancer and these people that are suffering beyond our measures, how did that change your worldview and how you attack life and how you go through your life?
So I've always believed in prayer, but I really believe in prayer at my foundation. That, and I'm not saying that other people that don't have the healing that Alexis had don't have prayer. I'm just saying, for whatever reason, this wasn't her time or her turn this way. But when you're put in an environment like that, and you feel like you're one of those parents that all of a sudden was making Christmas cookies and then your daughter's dying, it's it feels like a gift from God, and you don't want to give the gift back. So that's kind of what changed Steve's and my life, is to how to go through something like that, and then how to give back because we can.
Wow. So you make your goal is to make a lot of money and impact a lot of people with that money based on
That would be
everything
my
we've talked
whole
about.
goal. Even my team, I mean, not about, I'm shifting gears from the cancer part, but even my team, they're like, some of them have never been to Hawaii or whatever. And I can't even tell you many times. I said to all of them, hey, we make 150 million in sales. I don't care, who does it. You can sell one house and you sell 20. I don't care. However, we all do it as a team, and it's a we. I will take you and your spouses to Hawaii.
Wow. I want to talk to you about leadership because leadership is super important to me. And it's something that when I had my first full-time job, I found myself being very judgmental of my leader. I felt like there was things that should have been done that weren't done, things that were done that shouldn't have been done, and things of that nature. But as I've gotten into running my own business and having people that I am supposed to lead, both client-wise, life-wise, which is something that I didn't even comprehend when I was 18, 20 years old. Now I'm only 23, but still. And then employees as well. I've taken a step back in that judgment because I realize just truly how difficult it is. Because you have these people that are living lives that are their own unique characters, going through their own unique set of problems, their own unique set of skill sets, and all these things. And your job is to try to organize them and get them to one particular goal. What do you think and I've been a lot less judgmental because I realize how hard it is. And I want to hear from you, who's been a successful leader both in your family and your business. What are some of the most important qualities of a leader, and how do you lead your team successfully?
I think number one, that you're willing to get in the trenches with them. It's not that you're talking down to people. So leader to me is not drill sergeant or telling people what to do. It's showing them and leading them. And so one of the most important things is kind of really being intuitive maybe, or listening to what their skill set is, and helping them be their very best self. I've had people that have worked for me that want to be a leader, and they're truly not. It's just not who they are. So why can't they be their best wind beneath their wings to whoever their leader is, self? You see what I'm saying? It's not that one is more popular than the other or better than the other. It's how do you be your best self? And so when I meet with people or have people on my team, that's really my goal. I will tell you, you haven't asked me this, but I am always a little bit judgmental about myself because I feel I talk a lot, and sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'll think, oh, I need to respond to what that person asked me. So I do have to learn, the one mouth, two ears thing a little bit better as a leader, I would think. But my empathy is there. You have to be a person that has empathy for what people are going through, not the thing about, I was tired, so I missed my alarm, or I didn't show up, or whatever. I have zero tolerance for that. But I do think that you need to be a good listener. You need to tell the truth in a direct way and ask their permission. Can I be direct with you about something? And once you get the permission, it's not screaming, yelling. It's, this is the way I see it, and I'd like to have your feedback on it. If it ever does get escalated, I have been known to have a tone sometimes. I work fast, I talk fast, I think fast, and I take action. I expect everyone that I surround myself with to be like that. And sometimes I have to, have a little bit of a breath that not everybody is like that. And so if I have to say something 3 or 4 times, I get a tone and I get frustrated. If I have to deal with, if I've asked somebody, to have a work culture of not gossiping, not talking, behind someone's back or talking to somebody else about somebody else, and I hear it, I have a tone. So, I don't scream and yell, but I do say, stop. So those are the 2 areas I work on within myself, but that's just like 2 things. The most of me is wanting people to be successful.
And putting them in the position to succeed.
There's enough for all of us.
Yeah. And, I think that you just highlighted something super important. When you're thrust into the position of leadership, similar to entrepreneurship, because in entrepreneurship, you have to become a leader, especially as you scale. We talked about this briefly beforehand. It's a personal growth journey. Like it pokes holes at all of your weaknesses and it forces you to get better. in order for you to grow as a leader and lead people. I feel like that's something that I realized starting this business. It's like, I didn't realize how much self-development would be involved in it when I first started. I thought it's business, logic, numbers, those sort of things. But no, it's so much more than that. When you take on hard challenges and you try to build something huge, you can't. I heard this statement from someone that's very popular, has made a lot of money, but they said you can't build a 7-figure business if you're not a 7-figure person. You can't be someone who's a 6-figure person and build an 8-figure business. You can't have all of these running list of problems and not improve yourself and expect to build something huge, because your business is a reflection of yourself. So if you're not improving, how is your business supposed to improve? So when you talk about that, and when I ask you, well, what are the 2 most important traits of leadership? You bring it back to being self-reflective and being like, okay, well, I need to improve in these areas, which I think just goes to show who you are as a business owner. I think that's very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's bring it back to the audience for a little bit, because it's super important to me during this podcast that we try to provide actionable advice to people to help them grow as well.
Okay.
To that entrepreneur that is just starting off their journey, they have huge aspirations, probably larger aspirations than they should have in the first 12 months of their business. Maybe they want to make $1 million in the next 12 months. Like, what advice would you give to that person that has just started their entrepreneurial journey, has massive dreams, and is ready to go after it and is super high in motivation? What advice would you give to that person?
So this could be an age thing, but I don't know if you've ever seen the visual of 2 ladders are the same height, but the rungs on the ladder, some are shorter, and then the other side has such wide spaces in between them, even though the ladder is the same height. And I always think of that visual, because the one that has the shorter rungs is the easier one to climb. The one that has those high, the high ones, you have to get on a ladder to get up to from one to the other. So I would say kind of work smart. If you have a goal, be okay with being grateful along the way for each opportunity, because you're just going to run over people, in my opinion, if you're going to try to do everything and you're going to kind of blow yourself up. So for me, I think it's okay to have a wonderful dream, have a wonderful goal. I was asked way back then, if I'm my first business partner, what do you want to make your first year? To me, being, a housewife, that you should get paid, but you don't, and a mother, stay-at-home mom, I'd like to make 100,000 again. That's what I used to make before I did this. And in my first year, I did like 280 or something. And then my second year, I took a course on leadership and how to have 90 listings in 90 days or something. And I remember him saying, what if you get 88 listings and not 90? Are you going to think of yourself as a failure, or are you going to think of yourself as, wow, I got 88 listings? So that is something that really stuck with me. And so, just each year I had a different goal. So if that was me, I would say to the person, okay, depending on your age, who you are, I reinvented myself in my 50s. So there you go. You can, I think Duncan Hines, which Alexis doesn't even know what Duncan Hines is, but it's a cake, like Betty Crocker, cake mix. And so he made his first cake box thing or whatever for Duncan Hines when he was 67 or 68 years old. So it's not an age thing, but the younger person has more energy and maybe not as much life experience. So they've, most cases are out of college and they're ready to go. And I would say break down your goals. So if you want to be here on the top of the ladder, how can you get there? Pushing yourself, having your goals, like, what's that saying? Shoot for the moon, but land on a star. And be appreciative for what you got. And so it helps you get to the next goal. So I think it's all a lot about mindset, breaking down your goals, and giving yourself permission how to get to those goals.
Gratitude.
Gratitude is my big thing. I have to tell you, I have a baseball hat with gratitude, the word gratitude on there. I learned it from that book on Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. And when she said, for every single thing you get, no matter what it is, paying your bills, thank you. Thank you that I have enough money to pay my bills. The average person, and me included, I don't want to pay, instead of thank you that I have the money to pay my bills. When the taxes got done, it was on my gratitude list. Every day I have a gratitude team, or whatever you want to call it. And we say minimum of 5 a day, 10, you can outflow as many as you want. Nobody's going to pick on you because you wrote too many. And I put on there on tax day thank you that I had the money to pay my taxes.
Yeah. Gratitude is an underrated, I'm going to even call it a skill. I'm going to call gratitude a skill because it is unbelievably difficult. And I do think that you have to work at it every day. For me, it's being present. And that's something that my mentor has talked to me about a lot, is the importance of being present, especially when you're so go, go, go when you're young and you're always looking for the next thing. Be present. Be grateful for what you have. I'm grateful that my girlfriend and my life partner is alive and breathing and healthy. My mom is alive, breathing and healthy. Like, that I have this office space. I mean, I could think, oh, I want a bigger one. I want more money. I want more clients. I want more money in my personal account. But no, like, what about these things that I have right now? And how can I be grateful for those? And that's something I have to work at every day. I really believe that gratitude is a skill that you have to earn and work for.
Yeah. So to me, it's just as easy to be angry or frustrated. Gratitude feels better. You're stuck in traffic. Okay. Thank you, I guess, for that I have time with myself before I get to the next spot. Whatever it may be. I don't.
Thank you that I'm not the person that crashed to cause this traffic.
It's true, right? See, that's right. If I see a funeral hearse or whatever the whole go by, I'm always like, thank you that that's not me, and God bless them.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. I will say about gratitude, I don't use it, and I don't expect anyone else to use it as a form of, something good will come out of that. Or, it's never like that, because I feel like that doesn't really listen to whatever the other person is sharing. But I do think, and we don't always know what the silver lining is at the time, and we might not ever know what it is, but it's who we meet along the way. When I had cancer in 2010,
can you scoot over in front of the mic?
I had a friend that said to me, well, you're so positive. Can't you just will it away? Can't you just, make it go away? And I thought to myself, and I said, I guess I'm not that positive. But what I can do is be grateful for the people that God puts in my life to help me get through it. So I can be grateful for the doctor, the nurses, the private room, whatever it is I need to do. And I was similar, different times in our lives, but to Alexis, where even though I did have cancer and I did have 87 staples in my stomach, and it did take a while to heal from all of it, he said to me, as all the people out in his office are, dying and have no hair and, everything they're going through, he said to me, I get to tell you, go and live a great life. You can never say someone's cancer free, but I think you're 98% there. And I said, I'll take that 90%. That's a good odds. Yeah. So, I knew I wouldn't be able to be that elevated that I could, wish it away or vision it away or whatever. But I knew I could be grateful for whoever was put in my life.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. I love to hear that story.
I think gratitude is the closest we can come to prayer. It's kind of like a drive-through church experience. Because some people put all this energy on themselves. They have to pray with rosaries or pray or whatever. And I don't know, it doesn't even have to be a religious thing. It just has to be, as human beings, how can we not take life so seriously, be happy, and what can we focus on? It's really, relationships go bad when you focus on what you don't like about them. You get disheartened, right?
Yeah.
So if you focus on what you do like about them, if with my clients, if I focus on what's great about them, thank you for calling me. Thank you for the honor. Even if we're not a fit, thank you. Always coming from that place.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that there's these intangible skills that every person, but especially when you're in entrepreneurship, you've got to focus on. And I think gratitude is one of them. Patience is another one. Adaptability is another one. But gratitude is up there in the top 5 for sure. So thank you for sharing that. I have one more main question that's built out of practical advice, but I wanted to ask you, is there anything else that you want to cover today to bring value to the entrepreneurs and people that are looking to achieve success on this podcast today? Is there anything specific that you'd like to cover?
I would say that the only thing I could think of, just believe in yourself. Be your own best friend. Mm-hmm. Don't, alienate other people, but do it. You do it. Make yourself a priority. Self-care is so important. I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in other people, that we are so, hell-bent on getting to the goal that we lose sight of what you said is being in the present moment. And the present moment is where the gifts are. And I'm not a person that likes to be a gatherer. I like to be a starter and I like to be a finisher. But the kind of mundane part is not my gig. And so how do you leverage that? Well, you get other people that maybe you can hire that do like that. There's something for everybody. If you sat 10 people down in a circle and you said, put one thing about what you don't like about yourself in there, you might say, I don't like my skinny legs. Person might say, I don't like my fat legs. And each person gets to pull something that they like, it becomes a whole. So for me, I would say, be open to being your very best self and just take time to live in the moment and be grateful to yourself that you are who you are, that you've been given this gift of life. And I believe in you. Yeah. I do. I believe in each person. It will obtain what they want to obtain as long as they put themselves in the position to do it. Now, I do want to say one thing for me. I have a zero tolerance for kind of victim bully personalities where they blame everyone and everything for their lives. And it's like, too effing bad. I've had to stand up, be up, do up, and that's the people I surround myself with. Yeah. I have love and compassion for people, but I'm not going to do their work for them.
Yeah. There's always somebody that has it harder. So people that complain about, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. There's always somebody that has it harder. The fact is, the basic necessities, like living where we live, you don't have to really worry about the basic needs. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have a McDonald's that you can go spend $5 and get your protein, get your carbs in, and survive and be alive. Other places, you don't have access to that. And that in and of itself is incredible. And the fact that, so Caitlin and I went on a trip to the person that you met when you came here, Pamela that runs Girls Soccer Worldwide, they did a trip to Petawai in last year in November. And we went with them because to film the whole experience. They were giving back to the community, giving food packs, giving backpacks to schools. And they also did a soccer training for girls there because girls don't have access to coaches to train them how to play soccer because it's a very masculine culture where only men are allowed to play the sport predominantly. And when we went there, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me as I walked down the street was there's no road. It's just, it's dirt. You can't even tell the difference always between when you go outside to inside because it's just dirt. It's just rocks. It's just hard material. And you look at the buildings and there's no difference between the buildings either. It's just these kind of scrapped together buildings with these, there's no advertising. There's no colorful signs. Nothing really sticks out to you. It's very rudimentary. It's very basic. And the fact that we get to live where we live and you walk down the street and you have these beautiful sidewalks, this beautiful pavement, this beautiful park that you get to go walk to that has cut grass. We have the Metal Art Dairy, which has some of the best ice cream in the United States, according to people, right down the street from us. Like those little things, you can never take those for granted. So when people complain about, I don't have access to this and that, it's like you have access just to the ground underneath your feet right now. And you looking around and being in this beautiful environment, it's nothing to take for granted. It's really wonderful because you don't have that everywhere in the world.
I agree.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to get to before I get into my last question that you brought up that I want to hit on is leaning into your strengths and not your weaknesses. Really utilizing like what are you good at and identifying what you're good at and leaning into that. How do you identify what you're strong at and how important is it to lean into those strengths to build a business, to build a career?
I think that's great. So I did this leadership course in San Francisco. This is many years ago, and it wasn't to do with real estate. And my husband always makes fun of me because they offered a lot of different professionals to come in. And one of the things they had come in was this tarot card reading lady.
Oh my gosh.
And so when it got to be my turn, they spread out all the cards and this and that. And so I was just open to it. But she said, actually, because she figures out your birth date and this and that. And she said, you actually need to pull two. You have two soul cards. And she says, that's very rare. So one of them was the Emperor. which is the leader. And then one of them is the fool, which is the fun. It's not a fool like foolish. It's a person that, have fun, how to have
The
fun.
jester, the person
The
that
jester,
likes to
yes.
make people laugh.
So I thought it was hilarious because it's so me. But she said, so the strength of an emperor is to be a leader and to be in that position. And she said, but the part you have to be careful about is you will always be asked to be in that position. So because you're a leader, you will be asked to be in that position. And that's what I have to watch for, is to choose when I want to lead and when I want to follow. And or be a team, be more of on the team, not the manager or whatever. And then the fool part is how to have fun. And if you watch children, they know how to have fun. Adults, maybe not so much. Some people might, do ceramic or a sport or, go for a jog, whatever their fun is. The challenge is not to lead too much, and the challenge is to find, the fun in my life.
Interesting.
That's where you came in. I mean, I told you, I've been exploring. You're on my vision board. I have a microphone. I don't know what it means. I thought it would be a public speaker going around the world and saying who knows what, and maybe it will be. Could be just that it could be that I get to meet you, right? We don't know what it is, but on my vision board for my goals is podcast, microphones, people on stage, and that type of thing. So you just have to be open to where that leads you. But I've got the leadership, and I've got so I paid attention to the woman with the soul cards.
Yeah. Yeah, making sure that you know what your strengths are, what you're good at. That
and
way
I
you
would
can
say
put
it's
yourself in
true.
those positions.
Steve, my husband, then I learned how to do it, and then I got the card, so I did him, and he's the Wheel of Fortune.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So when we read about him, it's the person that brings fortune to him. Now, interesting enough, he works so hard, and I make so much more than him. And
Wow.
How is that fair? How is it fair that a teacher works so hard, and a movie actor, probably works hard, but makes $20 million, and they make, $80,000.
Yeah.
How is that fair?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think when I consider this question of leaning into your strengths versus your weaknesses, building a business, I think you have a lot of information out there that's pushed to you on what you need to do, what you should do, on how to grow, and it can be really overwhelming sometimes. But to your point, when you're thinking about, okay, who am I? What is my character set? What am I actually good at? Sometimes one person's advice won't resonate with you, and you probably shouldn't follow that advice because you're a different person than them. So how do you filter out the information that's being pushed your way constantly when you're trying to start a business on what you should do, and how do you find the path of what you should actually do based on your strengths?
That's where you need to know yourself, and at any age, because I don't know whatever anybody else has, but I have like this internal feeling. It doesn't make a noise, but it just is in that I'm not on my right path. Stop doing things. Look at if you're doing too much, stop. If you're saying too much, stop talking. Whatever it may be. So I think you have to really know yourself and know your own strengths and know your own, I don't want to call them weaknesses, but maybe shadow side or things that you kind of want to hone. Years ago, I don't know how old I was, 30 maybe, I'd never been afraid of anything in my life. I flew, I went on airplanes, I did anything, and out of the blue, I started getting these panic attacks. I didn't know what they were at the time. I thought they were heart attacks, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
It was really interesting. And what I found is I really liked my take charge, get it done, leader, whatever you want to call it, personality, but not so much the person that was afraid of people under the monsters under the bed, or the plane falling out of the sky or whatever. I didn't really like that part of me that was fearful. And that part wanted to be heard. So I had to become best friends kind of with all of me and learn all of me. And it was just a path I wouldn't recommend for anyone, because it wasn't, it was scary. It wasn't fun. And it took about a year. But I really learned what makes me tick, what stops me from ticking, and what do I need to do. So I recommend for anybody to not bury themselves in self kind of courses that you learn about yourself. But I've taken self-esteem courses, I've taken leadership courses, I've taught courses on open houses, or just different things. And I just think you have to really know yourself.
Yeah. How do you find the difference between, and I think that you can use the same answer for this even, but sometimes it's hard, for some people, it's hard to decipher between when something is uncomfortable versus when it's not right.
Yes, that's such a great question, especially in real estate. They'll say to me, I don't want to spend this much money, or I'm scared, or I'm this, or I'm that, or whatever. And I always say there's such a fine line between excitement and this is something new, but I'm, going to do it anyway, versus warning, do
Red
not
flag.
do it. And that's where you have to kind of know yourself. I have a friend, and she's been for 3 years talking about buying a house. She had been through a divorce. It was very hard. She only has a certain amount of money. And I called her, and we were talking. I said, now's your time. It's very rare a buyer's market in our area, but right now it has shifted more into a buyer's market than a seller's market. And so she's done it, but I just talked to her, and it's all going through. She's thrilled with everything that's happening, and it's not with me. I referred her to somebody, but she's very appreciative. But at the same time, she's having panic attacks. She hasn't been able to sleep, and this and that. So I said that could just be you leveling up to your dream. You've had this dream for 3 years of buying this house. And of course it's scary. Just because I'm afraid of going over suspension bridges. Do you think it drops away because I actually get the courage to go across it? No. I still have the feelings of fear, but the difference is I make myself do it. So you have been stagnant for 3 years. You've made wise choices. You've picked the house you want. You love it. You've picked the lender that you want. You've picked the realtor that you want. You have a team, a tribe, whatever you want to call it, getting you to the next phase. Your money is now going in. Friday's a holiday, so I think it goes in on Monday. But and then it's going to become your house. Of course you're afraid. I mean, of course you're nervous, but be really kind to yourself, because the kinder you are to yourself and you honor that part of it, it's going to go away faster. And then you're going to step into the new house. Stepping up, leveling up, achieving greatness. That's why a lot of people do self-sabotage. It's uncomfortable. Not to everyone. Some people are like, yahoo, but to the average person, it's not their comfort zone. It's not their comfort zone to be your thinnest self, your richest self, your most beautiful self, because that old saying, it's lonely at the top. People kind of try to tear you down sometimes. So with her, I said, be nice to yourself this week, the rest of it, and then enjoy the hell out of what you've just achieved, because I have witnessed you level up.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay. Last question. Then we're going to end it off today. I was going to end it off with that, but I think that this is very important, because you're someone that has sold the most homes in Ruby Hill, right?
Let me give an honest answer on that. Alexis always says I round up. Let's see. Out of anyone alive, yes, that is true.
Okay. Out of anyone alive, you've sold the most homes in the most desirable neighborhood in Pleasanton and Livermore. You've achieved amazing success. You have a strong brand around you. People know who you are, and they have a positive association with your team and you and the work that you've done.
Yes.
What advice would you give to the entrepreneur that is starting their business, in the middle of their business, and is trying to grind and build this strong thing? What advice would you give to them on building a strong brand?
So I'm a little different. I don't wear beige. What I mean by that is I'm okay being a little edgy, being a little blingy, being a little sparkle. So if a person isn't okay with that, don't do that. But build your brand on what is something about your best self. So if I want to be a striking personality, if I want to have the it factor, if I want to command a room when I walk into it, then I need to have my brand and my marketing show that. And I'm not talking about ego or arrogance. I'm talking about you be willing to put yourself out there and show your best self somewhere, and use that. So if a person is a conservative person, then maybe they come from that. Maybe that's their brand. They say, I take time to really, analyze this, or who knows what their thing is. That there is somebody for everybody, and it's important to know that, but your brand is what gets you out there. Look at social media. People say all the time, wow, you're doing great, or you're doing this, or you're doing that. It's their perception of you. Mm-hmm. So you want to build your brand that is maybe a little bit even more elevated than who you really are. Kind of like when people fill out their college, papers or whatever, and they have to, or a resume or whatever. You don't go in and say, well, I'm mediocre. You go in and you say, this is what's bam, bam, bam. You've got a couple, maybe a minute if you're lucky, less than that, to really show people what you're about. So if you're number one in something, you're number one. If you're, if you are, a family-based, if you're a woman, people copy me all the time. All the time. It infuriates me. People say to me, oh, well, the kind of compliment is being copied. It's annoying. Go get your own brand. But with that, I get to have fun with being the leader, because you're being copied. I'm not copying somebody, right?
Yeah.
And so in a person that was building their brand, I would suggest them building their brand about what makes them unique and their best self, and have the courage to put yourself out there.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, and entrepreneurs and high achievers and people that are trying to be successful in life, is going to wrap up this episode. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Micheletti podcast. I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys are going out there being high achievers, trying to accomplish your dreams and change the world. Thank you, especially for jumping on for this hour and a half, Liz.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. We'll see you on the next episode.
Okay.
Peace.